What if Roy Jones had stayed at heavyweight after beating John Ruiz? And what if he'd have got that final fight that he wanted against Mike Tyson at the time? Now, if we skip back a couple of years, when Jones beat Ruiz, it was 2003, I believe. And in the ring afterwards, he was asked about who he'd like to fight next, and he said, Tyson at heavyweight, then I'm done. Obviously, that didn't happen. He ended up boiling back down to 175 to meet Antonio Tarver. Squeaked past Tarver in the first fight and was KO'd in the second. But what would have happened if he'd have stayed at heavyweight and if he'd have fought the Mike Tyson of 2003-2004? At the time, Tyson had already lost to Ruiz and he'd fought Clifford Etienne in, I believe it was February 2003. And it was a one-round blowout. Etienne was a bit slow, a bit clumsy, a little bit static with his movement. Tried to meet Tyson head-on. He was KO'd with a right hand. And you might not remember the fight, but I think you might recall the KO as he went down at a funny angle on the one leg. He then pulled his gum shield out and sort of lay back on the canvas and was counted out. A few people thought he took a dive. I'm not so sure. In slow motion replay, you can see the punch landing. And as we know, Tyson was a serious, serious puncher. A month later, Roy Jones fought Andy Ruiz. And for the most part, he had his way. Moving in and out, pot shots. There was an incident where Ruiz caught Jones and wobbled him. And I believe Jones fell into a clinch and the moment passed. I'm thinking from memory now, so I might not be 100% accurate on that. If I'm not, please educate me, please inform me in the comments. So if they'd have met 6 months later, I think Jones would have been his normal heavyweight self, and by that I mean his movement still would have been pretty good, obviously not as quick as he was down at light heavyweight. He bulked up to, I believe it was around 195. I know they weighed him in over 200 pounds during the Ruiz fight week, but Jones and his team, if you've seen the documentary, did say that their own scales, he was weighing about 192, 193. So he'd have been around 195. I still think he would have been very fast, having enough pop in his punches, and he would have faced the Tyson that was somewhere between beating Etienne and losing to Danny Williams a year later. That Tyson had 3 to 4 rounds of fury in him. If you recall the Danny Williams fight, Tyson had him pretty much out on his feet, and Williams managed to hang on, and in the next couple of rounds Tyson was just spent and Williams got the stoppage. I think if Roy had stayed at heavyweight and he'd have got the Tyson fight, first off, let's cover how the fight would have gone. I think it would have gone one of two ways. I think Jones would have managed to have kept out of the way for 4, 5, maybe 6 rounds and piled up points with his pot shots and potentially taken it on the cards. I don't think he'd have stopped Tyson unless Mike had some sort of mental lapse at the time and didn't want to fight anymore. I don't think Jones would have stopped him with his own power. But would Jones have been able to stay out the way for those 4 rounds? Tyson wasn't slow on his feet, and he would have had around a 30-pound advantage over Jones at the time. I think it would have been one of two outcomes. Either Jones on points, or Tyson would have got to him, would have put those shots on him, and I don't think Roy would have stood up to the shots at all, and Tyson would have got that early KO. If I had to pick, I think I would have picked Jones to win. I think. Wouldn't have bet any money on it, but I think. If that would have happened, and if Roy had retired soon after, I think, because we hadn't seen the Danny Williams and the Kevin McBride versions of Tyson, I think that Roy Jones would be discussed as one of the top 5 greatest fighters of all time if that had happened. Right now in his prime, he's still one of the greatest ever for me. But the losses towards the end of his career and staying around too long, a lot of people they do think that tarnishes his legacy. Personally, I don't. I like to think of a fighter as in their prime, and that's what I like to judge them on. And in his prime, Jones Jr. was about as close to the most perfect fighting machine that I've ever seen. With his combination of speed, power, athleticism, reflexes, unorthodox attacks, I thought he was exceptional. But if he'd hung around, if he'd got that win against Tyson, I think you're looking at a top 5 all-time great. Right up there in the argument with Ali, Sugar Ray Robinson, Henry Armstrong, right up in that topper echelon of fighters. But unfortunately he didn't. He came down and fought Tarver. I thought he should have retired after the first Tarver fight. You know, he didn't seem to be there. But as we know, he hung around too long, got KO'd by Tarver, KO'd by Johnson, and yeah, the latter part of his career unfortunately didn't do anything to enhance his legacy. But what do you think, guys? Let me know in the comments section. If you disagree, you're more than entitled to. Please tell me why you disagree, and we will have a good old chat. But until next time, I will catch you guys again. Take care.